You don't always need to buy the newest gear out on the market at any given time. What you can do is you have a look at our used page at cameracenteruk.com/used. Are a lot of deals on some really powerful cameras that you may or may not be looking at. Today, what I decided to do is take out one of our used cameras, which is a Fujifilm X H2s, which a lot of people have been talking to me about being a really decent video camera. So this is my general experience that I had with it whilst taking it out. But first, let's hit the specs. This is a 26.1 megapixel X-Trans 5 stacked image sensor. It can go up to 40 frames a second using the electronic shutter and up to 15 frames a second using the mechanical. When it comes to video, you got great specs here. It's a 4K 120p, 6.2K at 30p, and then HD at 240p. You can record Apple ProRes internally at 10-bit 422. It does have 7 stops of image stabilisation, weather resistance, CF Express Type B card slot, improved autofocus, open gate at 6.2K, Blackmagic support for external recording, high resolution viewfinder, and unlike any other Fujifilm cameras, this has a full-blown hand grip, which is nice and comfortable to actually use. The camera itself is for sports and wildlife photography as well as filmmaking. This is kind of what it's geared to do, and it does that really quite well. The difference here between the XH2 and the XH2s is, of course, the sensor. When it comes to the XH2, there's a 40 megapixel sensor, and with this one there's a 26.1 megapixel sensor that is stacked. This is to actually help with the autofocus and make sure that it's a slightly better autofocus system than you would otherwise have in your typical Fuji 40 megapixel camera. The other thing here is speed is the name of the game, and with the XH2s you get speed. These specs here make it an incredibly versatile camera. However, you can't actually shoot that 8K because you've only got that 26 megapixel sensor. And this kind of leads us to the price. Usually the more expensive one is of course going to be the one with the higher megapixels. However, it's the other way around here. Again, speed is the name of the game here, and if you want a camera that is going to be excellent for filmmaking, sports, and all that kind of stuff, this is perfect. And we've actually got 2 of these in stock in our used section at the moment, and here is the price of them. So this camera is of course more popular when it comes to the video side, but we're going to be testing out a little bit of the photo side of it today. Here's a Fuji camera. You've got those amazing film simulations. You got pretty awesome colour science just across the board. I mean, we got the Christmas markets, and I thought, what a better day to do it, really. We got a little bit of nice weather, which is a change for Britain, and it's a nice time to actually try a camera which I've heard quite a lot about, again and again and again, from people who actually shoot Fuji cameras. And it's been a solid recommendation for video for a little while. Anyway, let's give it a go. Give it a good old test, shall we? Anyway, let's head on to the market. Gonna grab some photo, some video on the way and see what it looks like. Today I have equipped it with an 18-135, which gives me a nice little bit of range to get people from afar, up close, depending on kind of what I want to do. First of all, let's check it out for vlogging. So of course, when it comes to this particular camera, you got your very angle screen there, just like with most cameras these days, which means it's going to be a relatively quite powerful little vlogging tool. So let's just switch over to that for a second. I've actually put film simulation on it for the time being, and what we're going to do is actually just start recording. Okay, so that's what you get. What's quite interesting about this is that it is actually, as you can see, it does look like it is tracking my eyes pretty well. Again, let's move a bit closer, move a bit further away. So this is footage from the baked-in film simulation, as well as just checking out the audio quality of the mics. It is very good here. The noise isolation here is from DaVinci. Last thing to mention with this little test clip is of course the autofocus. It works pretty well for vlogging autofocus, however it's not perfect, and it's not what you would expect out of a Sony. It's what you'd expect out of a Fuji, and it works. Again, when it comes to choosing a Fuji camera, you're choosing it for the colours, the experience. It's not perfect, but it is pretty damn good. I am shooting this, mostly I'm going to be shooting this on 4K at 60p. So, let's get to shooting some people and things, shall we? So from the initial impression, the stabilisation actually does seem to be working really quite well. It's nice and smooth when you're moving about, and it's really static, especially on that 135mm focal length. Seems to be working quite well with it. Let's continue. So looking down the viewfinder, it's nice and clear. It's a little bit smaller, but it's kind of what you're expecting out of the small kind of APS-C kind of styled cameras. The shutter sounds really quite nice. Again, you're kind of expecting a decent amount of quality out of Fuji cameras, especially kind of at this range of price as well. Something that I've noticed while shooting is the autofocus doesn't really know what it wants to do. But this can also, be helped by using spot focus style to it. But it also doesn't feel quite as clean cut as the other models like Canon or Sony. But that's up to you really to decide. I mean, a lot of people that pick Fujifilm cameras might end up adapting their lenses. You know what I mean? But otherwise it feels sticky when it wants to be. That's the best way to say it. It feels sticky when it wants to be, not necessarily always when you want it to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So although this does have face detect autofocus, when it comes to large crowds like this where I'm in at the moment, it just seems to switch between everything really fast all at once. So you find yourself having to really turn it off. Photo mode, however, I feel like it's performing a little bit better. The images look super sharp, at least down the viewfinder. Of course, it's going to come to Stuart later on if he gives a thumbs up, of course. It's been quite nice to shoot this with the 18-1.5 today. It kind of gives you a decent amount of range there to really be able to get subjects from a little bit further on. Because it's very crowded here today, I've actually got some really nice portraits of people just looking in and down the street. As when it comes to most Fujifilm cameras, the user interface is very well thought out. It feels really quite flush. Opposed to the X-T5 and those kind of cameras, I do actually feel like I'm missing some of the control aspect that you'd usually get from a Fuji camera that's just a little bit different. I do feel like the build quality of this, of course, it is completely weather sealed, which means in any kind of weather it's going to be pretty damn good. Of course, we've got nice weather today, opposed to it just being rainy or something like that. But it's going to be able to withstand that kind of condition, which is something I don't necessarily always trust when it comes to the Sony system. Granted, I've taken my cameras out in absolutely awful weather and they have survived, but it's still worrying. When it comes to the Fujifilm setup, I feel like I'm less worried and more kind of like in the moment with whatever I'm creating at the time.
Right, nice, I'm John. What's the interest today, dude?
Huh?
The interest, what's the...
I'm just testing out the camera, to be honest. I do a YouTube for local camera shop.
Sorry, say that again.
I do a YouTube channel for a local camera shop.
Okay.
So what I'm going to shoot now is the HD, just full HD at 240 frames a second. Yeah, it's quite nice. Oh, birds. I think I'm done shooting with this today. I feel like we've got enough example shots, kind of like what you can get out of it. Let me know if you want to see more of it in terms of in different situations. I think trying out like a music video or like a doc shoot would actually be a little bit interesting. My final thoughts will come once I've looked after doing. My final thoughts are going to be right now, actually, not here, in the office. So see you there. That worked. Let's have a look over the camera. Of course, it is very, very pretty. There is your sensor. You got an S to make sure you know that it's an S Fujifilm. On the side here, you have your dial that goes between all of your custom settings, including your manual, A, S, P, your filters, so that is your film simulations, your video mode, as well as a whole host of custom dials. So unlike the other Fujifilm cameras we've done recently, this is more geared towards your professional kind of day-to-day use. On the side here, of course, you have your on and off, you have your ISO, white balance, and record button. You have a number of custom buttons on the side here, as well as a flash sync, I believe. Coming around to the side here, you have your CF Express Type B slot as well as your SD card slot. Around the back, of course, you have the screen, which is a very angle screen, which allows you to do some vlogging with. Just really great for videographers in general. And then, of course, you have your playback button, your delete drive up here, a whole heap of other buttons and joysticks for you to be able to enjoy, and it just works really quite well, to be honest with you, when it comes to general use of the interface. Of course, when it comes to using a new camera, it takes a bit of time to learn. The layout for the settings with Fuji cameras is pretty nice, and it's easy to understand once you get your head around it. And then on the side, of course, we have the headphone input, mic, HDMI, and we have actually got a full HDMI there as well. So for using external monitors or that external recording that it talks about, it's absolutely kind of perfect for that. And then, of course, you got your USB-C transfer area there. And then, last but not least, the place where you put the battery. The camera itself does feel very solid, and it is actually really quite pretty just in general. It's not along the lines of your other Fujifilm cameras where you have all of the dials for the ISO and the shutter speed up on top, and that's one thing I'd say that I'd personally miss here, because if I'm going for Fujifilm, I'm going for a camera that looks like a film camera. But this camera is very capable. Like I said, you've got access to all of that crazy functionality that they're putting into the camera. So your film simulations, the 6.2K open gate, absolutely essential for people doing social media filming and stuff like that. And anything for social media marketing right now. Of course, it has the ability to be used professionally from the retrospect of shooting for weddings, shooting sports, shooting events. You have the ability to shoot really fast there, 40 frames a second. It does actually have pre-shooting in it as well, which allows you to make sure that you capture the shot for sure. Overall, there is a lot here that I like. Is it something that I'd personally turn to? I think if I was starting out, this would be a very real option for me, especially if I shot Fujifilm. However, I do think the autofocus has a lot to really be said when it comes to what it does. It does feel fairly sticky. However, it feels like it doesn't really understand the situation that well. And this comes to comparing it to the likes of Canon and Sony, which this very much isn't when it comes to that side of things. However, with that being said, I myself am looking at Fujifilm at the moment, even though I shoot with a really reliable camera, and I love the fact it's reliable. When it comes to these Fujifilm cameras, and especially stuff like the X-T50, the X100, people like them because they have a little bit more personality. And sometimes it's good to have cameras that give you a problem that you need to solve. But again, that's not for everybody. My final thoughts are the images, the color, and everything out of this camera. I really like it. It's beautiful. You can do so much with it. Is it the perfect camera? No, it's not. But there's a lot of potential here. And like I said, if I was looking for a video camera within Fuji, I think this would ultimately be one of my top picks. But I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. If you like this video, make sure you like, follow, subscribe if you want to see more. Have a good day.